building blocks. We got DraftKings contributors Nick Friar, Matt Meiselman is back in the house. We're talking best DFS and sportsbook plays. To build around for tonight's 5-game NBA slate. Do not eat Girl Scout cookies for breakfast, or do, like whatever, live your life. Best guard to build your DFS lineups around, Mr. Friar. Who you got?
So I am going to start today with Klay Thompson at 6.3K going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He came through for us last time in a similar spot where he's going up against a bad team. And for guys who are coming off of big injuries, or guys who are just struggling, this is the kind of situation where you want to target them. He's got 30-plus DK fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. And the biggest thing for him tonight, of course, is Klay Thompson, 3-point shooter, right? He's averaging about 8 a game. Opponents may only be shooting 34.3% from deep versus Oklahoma City, but the Thunder give up the 4th most 3-point attempts and the 6th most made 3-pointers per game.
All right, isn't that kind of like cheating there with that dude on your shoulder? Because can he see the future? Can he read the future?
I don't know if he necessarily has that power, but
okay. I thought that's what Yoda did. I don't know. I haven't seen like the new Star Wars, the new Baby Yoda thing. That's not actual like Yoda, right? There's like
that's not Yoda.
There's a whole like planet of them. Okay.
A whole different thing.
All right, sounds good. Meiselman, the only thing that you could do right now is maybe you could break out like Biff Tanner's like Gray's Sports Almanac book.
Yeah, I don't have any props or tools to help me predict the future. I'm just gonna have to go with my gut on this one. I think there's a chance that the Miami Heat rest some key players today. Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero are listed questionable. So Kyle Lowry, who's not on the injury report, is $6,600 for a really strong matchup against the Washington Wizards. We don't know if Butler or Hero are playing yet. That's where the prognostication comes in. I think just given how well the Heat have played, but they've had a tough schedule, like in terms of playing back-to-backs and all of that. They just won an important division game against the Charlotte Hornets to take over the lead. In the Eastern Conference, they're now the 1 seed. It seems like a game that would make sense for them to, just take it easy on some of their players who have been banged up. And if Butler sits and Hero sits, then you get Kyle Lowry, $6,600, where he deserves to be way more expensive than that. His role would go up a lot. You also get less chance of a blowout if that happens too, if Butler's not playing. So I don't know yet if this is going to work out this way, but I'm keeping an eye on Kyle Lowry for sure.
Maddie, 5 games on this slate. So which forward is a must start here? I know you just mentioned like Butler is like questionable. You got a couple guys in the 9K range. So Siakam's in there. I mean, Levine's questionable. DeRozan.
Yeah, this is a team I like for a lot of reasons tonight, but the Charlotte Hornets and Gordon Hayward specifically. So the real answer is I don't think anyone's a must play yet, but if there's anyone who is in consideration for that, Hayward is just way underpriced at $5,000. He was a guy who was priced in the mid to high 6,000s. And then he was hurt for a few games. He's come back, and I think because his minutes were a little bit limited in the early going, his price came down. Hayward's playing more now. I think we should expect his role to go back up. The Hornets just had a really tough home loss to the Cavs, and I think this is a game that'll be pretty important for them. They're going to want the regulars playing as much as they can handle. So this is just a pricing mistake, I think, because we get this all the time where a player is underpriced because he was on a minutes limit. And then once that minutes limit is lifted, now we have value. And I think that's the deal for Hayward tonight. So this is a pretty good guy to build a lineup around. Even though there isn't really a must play yet, he's pretty close to one.
All right, Friar, who's a good forward then to build a lineup around tonight?
Well, I'm being told right now that Mikhail Bridges is going to be a must play tonight at 6.1K going up against the Chicago Bulls. I know he had a dud last time out, but we saw the same thing with Chris Paul, Devin Booker. I know Ayton had a big game in that one, but that was up against the Wizards on Saturday, and that was a blowout. So he just didn't have the normal workload that he's having. He only played like 26 minutes. He'd been playing 40 in the previous 3 games. And in those games, he provided 40-plus DK fantasy points each time out. He should get a normal workload going up against the Bulls tonight, given as much as the Bulls, I know Matt said it quite a few times on the show, how the Bulls are not the same team without Caruso and Lonzo Ball, still a much better team than the Wizards. So Bridges should have no trouble providing 6-7 times value tonight, especially considering the Bulls aren't particularly good against opposing forwards from a fantasy standpoint this season.
All right, let's talk about a center who is a big, beefy dude at the 5 you need in your lineup. Nick.
Well, I'm not going to go with necessarily a beefy guy. And, of course, this guy has forward eligibility. Pascal Siakam at 9.2K going up against the Hornets. I do like Bam Adebayo if Jimmy doesn't play tonight. But I think that's going to be a much chalkier play if Butler doesn't go. But for Siakam, he's been rolling through Toronto's 5-game winning streak. And the Hornets are trending in the opposite direction. And they're among the 10 worst teams in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. They've allowed the 4th most points per game to the center position this season, 7th most rebounds per game to the position. And then when you look at Charlotte too, we talk about how bad they are defensively, but we also always cite how they're one of the best teams in terms of pace, which makes them such an appealing option. So Siakam, as much as Van Vliet's going, they've both been doing really well alongside each other of late. So he's my guy tonight.
All right, Matt, where are you going at center?
So, yeah, I'll go right back to the Heat and just at least mention Bam Adebayo. I'll give another player, too. But if Butler doesn't play, then we definitely have to look at Bam. But one other guy for the Warriors, Kavon Looney, this could be a game where they're shorthanded again. Otto Porter Jr. has missed some games, and so has Andre Iguodala. We already don't have Nemanja Bjelica playing for this team. So Looney, with Draymond Green out, has been a more important player for Golden State. But with all those other guys potentially out, this could be a better spot than normal. And recently, the Warriors have had a couple games where they've had to go smaller because the team they've been playing against hasn't really wanted to use a big either. They just played against Sacramento where that was the case. And then the game before that against San Antonio, Jakob Poeltl got injured in the second quarter. And from that point forward, the Spurs were playing Keldon Johnson at center or Doug McDermott. They weren't really playing a center. So Looney wasn't on the court for the end of that game either. I don't think the Thunder are going to do that. We probably see Diakite or Favors. One of those two guys on the court for most of the game. So Looney should play more minutes, and at 5,100, I think it's a good matchup. I mean, it's OKC, so he should do well there.
Matt, can you make an argument for building around a value play tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to go with another center because we can't mention every single center for the center part, but Montrezl Harrell's only 4,700. And Thomas Bryant, I mean, I'm not really sure why the Wizards are trying to get him so much playing time. Like, I just don't think he's particularly good. But he's young. He has potential. He was hurt for a while. We could see Bryant become a better NBA player at some point. But for now, Harrell's the guy who's the better center on the team. And Daniel Gafford's in health and safety protocols. So these are really the only two guys I think that the Wizards are going to play at center tonight. Under other circumstances, you could see Rui Hachimura or Kyle Kuzma play center. But Miami's too big for that. To go against Adebayo or Yurtseven or Dedmon, I don't think they're going to want to play Kuzma at the 5. I think we see both centers split the full 48 minutes. And because Harrell is the much better player than Bryant, I think there's a good chance that Harrell plays more of the minutes and has more of the production. So, 4,700 I think is way too cheap for the situation for Montrezl Harrell.
Okay, Friar, how do you feel about building around a value play?
Yeah, actually, Matt and I are on the same page on this one. Montrezl Harrell is my favorite value play of the night going up against the Heat. And, we talk about Gafford. I don't think that there's going to be like this huge, massive impact in terms of minutes distribution because he was I think playing at most 15 minutes of late. I think it was 7 last time out. So he's not getting a ton of, we're not getting a ton of minutes handed to Harrell or Bryant, but he should be able to provide at least 5 times value tonight. He's done that at this price point in 3 of his last 5 games where he's played around 27 to 19 minutes, anywhere in that range. And with Gafford out, he should be more towards that higher end of the spectrum. And, as Matt said, you look at this lineup, the Heat lineup, they are good against opposing bigs. But with Bradley Beal out too, I know that's kind of translated more to Kyle Kuzma and Spencer Dinwiddie in terms of shot opportunities, but still there's more offense to be had. So with Gafford out too, Harrell should have the volume. Also, I like Darius Bazley tonight, especially if Dort is out at 5.4K. And then on even the lower end of the spectrum, Duncan Robinson at 3.6K, if no Hero or Butler in this contest.
Hey, Nick, over on the DraftKings Sportsbook side, which player prop would you build your bet slip around?
Yeah, there's a lot in terms of player props tonight that I like. I like Klay Thompson going over 2.5 3-pointers made against the Thunder. I like Mikhail Bridges over 17.5 points plus rebounds against the Bulls. 2 guys, of course, I talked about from a DFS side. But my favorite one is Pascal Siakam going over 21.5 points. I was looking at points plus rebounds, but they have his rebound total set pretty high, which he could very well hit, but I'd rather just stick with the points because I feel like he'll comfortably get over this. I don't know if he's going to go seismically over and drop 30 points, but he's gone over this total in 3 of his last 4 games. And one of those games was an overtime loss versus Chicago. So there was a little help there, but still, regardless, he's in good form. Charlotte, not so much. We talked about that already. Second in pace, one of the worst defensive teams in terms of defensive rating. They've given up the 4th most points to his position this season. So Siakam at least getting 22 points tonight is my favorite prop. Okay,
Matt, what about you? Your favorite prop?
So this is going to be a little on the fly because when we started this segment a few minutes ago, there were no Miami Heat props up yet, or at least I didn't see them. Now they're up. So Bam Adebayo for points, rebounds, assists is at 35.5. I think you do want under there if Butler and Hero, if the Heat have all their guys playing. And then if they're out, the over bet I like is Kyle Lowry. So we probably want to wait for news there, but Kyle Lowry for his full stats for points, rebounds, and assists, only 25.5. I mean, if Butler and Hero don't play, I think that number gets well into the 30s. So I'm keeping an eye on Lowry. I'm keeping an eye on Bam, but it does kind of seem like Bam is already priced up for that situation and Lowry is not.
Matt, which team is your best bet to cover the spread? What do you think?
The Hornets are +2 at home against the Raptors. I think there's some bias baked into this line where the Hornets have been struggling and the Raptors have been winning, but the Raptors have also needed multiple overtimes to do this, and they've been traveling a lot. I mean, this is a game where they have to go from Toronto down to Charlotte. Home court advantage, I think, will be a big deal here. And the line opened with the Hornets -1. I think the public has bet it to the Raptors side. To me, it's an overreaction, so I like the Hornets getting 2 points.
All right, Nick. Which one's covering the spread tonight? Which team?
I like Miami going up against Washington. The spread, I think, opened up at 4.5. That's where I saw it yesterday, but now it's up to 6.5. I still don't think that they need Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero to cover this one tonight. The Wizards in general are one of the worst teams against the spread this season, where it's 20, 31, and 1. And they don't have Bradley Beal still. So I think Bam Adebayo and Kyle Lowry can get this done. If they have Hero, if they have Butler, just one of those guys, sure, that helps. But I think those two have enough firepower given where the Wizards are at. I know the Wizards have been good as home underdogs this season. Well, I say good, but better than they are in general. They're 6-5 against the spread as home underdogs, but they're not good. They're under 500 on 1 day's rest against the spread. And the same goes when it's they have the same amount of rest as their opponent, whereas the Heat are on the other end of the spectrum in both of those categories. So all things are pointing towards the Heat in this one.
All right, Slate approved pick time here, Friar. Give me your favorite bet on the board tonight before you take off.
Yeah, I like a lot of these props tonight, but in the end, I talked about Pascal Siakam going over 21.5 points. I still stand by that. I think that's given where he's trending and how the Hornets are going in the opposite direction. I love this play for him tonight. So yeah, Pascal Siakam 22 points at least tonight.
All right, Matty, favorite bet.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the game total in Phoenix, Chicago. Levine and DeRozan are probably the two main players that people will worry about for affecting an over-under. Levine's been hurt. DeRozan's played a ton of games in a row with tons of minutes. He could get the night off. Kobe White, too, though, is banged up. And Kobe White doesn't play a lot of defense, is a pretty high-volume offensive player, and drives the pace pretty well. Like, I think games should go under the total if he's out, too. So watching that, and I potentially really like under 227.5 for that game if the Bulls are missing some guys.